Imagine the weight of unseen sins, buried deep in family ledgers like ghosts in the attic. A wealthy baron, cloaked in false nobility, buys a trembling girl at auction for his daughter's whim. But as she steps into the candlelit hall, barefoot and broken, her eyes meet his, and the mirror of his youth stares back. A resemblance forged in forbidden blood. What divine justice awaits when the chains of slavery bind your own flesh? Tonight, the Harrove legacy unravels in shadows of guilt and retribution. The fog clung to Charleston's cobblestone streets like a shroud, muffling the clop of horse hooves and the distant wail of ship horns from the harbor. It was March 14, 1857, a day etched in the annals of divine irony, where the salty brine mixed with the metallic tang of impending storm. The air hummed with the low murmur of merchants and the sharp crack of whips from unseen alleys, a symphony of commerce built on human despair. Baron Wilhelm Harrove, a name he had forged in the fires of ambition, purchased alongside a counterfeit crest during a shadowy sojourn in Bavaria, strode through this veil of mist toward the auction house on Meeting Street. His boots, polished to a predatory gleam, echoed against the damp stone, each step a declaration of his dominion over fate and fortune. At 53, the Baron carried the burdens of excess like a crown of thorns. His once lean frame had swollen under layers of indulgence, rich gravies from plantation feasts, aged ports that stained his lips a perpetual crimson. Gray strands clung desperately to his scalp, combed with the precision of a man denying mortality. Yet his eyes, sharp as a serpent's fang, betrayed the calculator within, the architect of an empire rooted in the blood-soaked soil of rice fields. 3,000 acres along the Ashley River, tended by 200 souls in chains, fed his coffers. Railroads snaked through his investments like veins of iron, textile mills churned profits from cotton picked by blistered hands, and Charleston real estate stood as monuments to his ascent from obscurity. He had wed late, at 40, to Margaret Whitfield, scion of Virginia's tobacco barons, a union of cold strategy, merging his nouveau riches with her faded aristocracy. Now 38, Margaret retained a fragile beauty, her skin as pale as moonlit marble, shielded from the sun's judgmental glare by parasols and drawn curtains. Her hands, adorned with rings that whispered of old glories, trembled faintly, a secret affliction born from losses unspoken. 2 miscarriages had scarred her womb before Constance arrived, a solitary bloom in their barren garden. The child had been swaddled in privilege from her first breath, tutors from Boston whispering verses of Shakespeare and Voltaire, a Viennese maestro coaxing melodies from ivory keys thrice weekly. Dresses whispered across oceans from Parisian ateliers, jewels glinting from London's fog-shrouded shops, books arriving in crates from New York's bustling presses. Constance, at the cusp of 16, embodied porcelain perfection, honeyed tresses cascading like golden rivers, eyes a piercing Arctic blue that could freeze or enchant. She inherited her mother's delicate contours and her father's unyielding resolve, an alchemy that rendered her a siren in silk. Yet her world was a gilded cage. She had never ventured to the slave quarters where whips sang and backspent under the sun's merciless eye, never tasted the grit of labor, never felt the coarse weave of anything but the finest linens. Her hands, soft as petals, had only ever commanded, never toiled. For her birthday, she demanded not jewels or gowns, but a companion in chains, a girl her age, fair of skin, literate and refined, to attend her whims. Not one of those field creatures, Papa, she had pleaded, her nose wrinkling like a wilting flower. They're so coarse, so shadowed by the sun. I want someone who can braid my hair with gentle fingers, read poetry by candlelight, whisper secrets without the slur of ignorance. A friend, but one who knows her place beneath mine. The Baron had nodded, recognizing the twisted benevolence of the elite, a display of mercy masking ownership, a pet to parade as proof of their enlightened rule. The auction house loomed like a temple to Mammon, its wooden facade scarred by years of transactions in flesh. Inside, the air thickened with the acrid bite of tobacco smoke, sweat-soaked wool, and the faint, underlying rot of despair. Planters clustered in knots, their voices a low rumble of appraisals, backs straight or bent, teeth sound or gapped, spirits broken or defiant. A harsh winter had reaped its toll, pneumonia's icy grip had claimed dozens in the quarters, leaving voids to fill, debts to settle, heirs to divide spoils. Thaddeus Crane, the auctioneer, presided like a high priest of profit, his diminutive frame belying a voice that boomed like thunder. Clad in a black suit straining at the seams, he peddled humanity with silken words, prime stock, gentleman, resilient as oak, obedient as lambs. The Baron had dispatched his criteria to Crane days prior, a girl of 14 to 16, light-skinned to blend in drawing rooms without scandal, literate for tasks of intellect, comely to satisfy Constance's aesthetic whims. Rare commodities, Baron, Crane had murmured, ledger in hand. Education elevates the price, knowledge in chains is a double-edged blade. Undeterred, the Baron replied, spare no expense, deliver perfection. 17 lots paraded before him that morning, each a tableau of tragedy. A girl with scarred arms from overseer's lashes, too sullen for service. Another, pretty but stumbling over scripture, her claimed literacy a auctioneer's lie. The Baron's patience frayed like old rope, the cacophony of bids and pleas grating against his nerves. He rose to depart, coattails swirling in the stale air, when Crane intercepted him, cheeks flushed with opportunistic zeal. One more, sir, a late arrival from Georgia. Estate liquidation, widow of a schoolmaster, debts devouring the legacy. This girl's been house-raised, schooled with the heirs. 14, fair, fluent in letters and numbers. Intrigue pierced the Baron's ennui. Present her. Crane vanished into the shadowed rear, emerging with the child. She stood like a willow in wind, slender to the point of fragility, her faded calico dress a patchwork of men's, hanging loose on a frame hollowed by grief or hunger. Bare feet, calloused and dust-streaked, spoke of journeys unwilling. Dark curls, tied with twine, framed a face that halted the Baron's breath, wide-set eyes of deepest sable, brows straight as moral lines, a nose balanced in aristocratic poise, lips full with hints of defiance veiled in sorrow. Her skin glowed like amber under lantern light, ambiguous, a whisper of mixed heritage that could pass in twilight but provoke whispers in daylight. A spiritual chill settled over the Baron, unbidden. In her features, he glimpsed echoes of biblical reckoning, the mark of Cain, perhaps, or the hidden sins of David, where blood called to blood across generations. Your name, he demanded, voice steady despite the stir in his soul. Eliza, sir. Her response flowed soft, unmarred by dialect's chains, clear as a northern stream, educated tones betraying ours at a mistress's knee. Eyes up. She complied, lashes lifting like veils from a confessional. Those eyes, profound, weary with ancient knowing, held a dignity that pierced him. Resignation mingled with a spark of intellect, as if she tallied the costs of her captivity in silent ledgers of the heart. The Baron felt a tug, a ghostly hand on his shoulder, recognition? Impossible. Yet her countenance stirred shadows in his memory, like a portrait half-remembered from youth's indiscretions. Your skills? Reading, writing, arithmetic, sir. Mrs. Brennan, my late mistress, a teacher by calling, schooled me with her kin. She deemed ignorance a sin against the divine spark in every soul. She faltered, words trailing like unspoken prayers. Even in bonds, he pressed. Yes, sir. Her swallow echoed in the hushed room. The widow's fate? Consumption claimed her 6 weeks past. Her son, distant in Savannah, liquidated all home, hearth, holdings, and us. 7 souls scattered, I, the last. Circling her, the Baron appraised as one might a relic unearthed clean despite poverty, posture erect amid degradation. Her dignity whispered of inner light, a soul unbowed by chains, yet this very resilience hinted at peril, knowledge could kindle rebellion, education erode submission. In his mind's eye, he saw scriptural parallels, Joseph sold by brethren, rising to judge them, or Esther, veiled in beauty, unveiling truth. The price? $800, Baron. Premium for pedigree, docile, documented, disease-free. Exorbitant, yet the Baron acquiesced, notes unfurling from his purse like Judas's silver. The bill of sale, inked with cold formality, one Negro girl, Eliza, aged 14, sound in limb and wit. Sealed, it bound her fate to his whims. Deliver her by dusk, attired appropriately. He departed without glance, ignoring the tremor in her clasped hands, the solitary tear tracing her cheek like a baptism of sorrow. The walk home, 6 blocks through lifting fog, carried him to the Harrove mansion, a Georgian sentinel overlooking the harbor. Built in 1803 by a duelist felled by hubris, renovated with European opulence, French wallpapers blooming with forbidden gardens, English oak groaning under weighty tomes, Italian crystals refracting light like fractured halos. Margaret awaited in the morning room, needle-piercing fabric in rhythmic penance. Her embroidery, a pastoral scene, belied the tension in her grip. Success, she inquired, eyes lifting like wary doves. A Georgia girl, Eliza 14, schooled, suitable. Margaret's gaze flickered, a shadow crossing her composure. Her origins? Widow's estate, debts devouring the dead. A pause, heavy as unsaid confessions. Wilhelm, reconsider. Constance's tender clay, a peer in chains might blur divine hierarchies, master and servant, as God ordained. He bristled. We debated this. It's preparation for her future dominion, household command, servants' reigns. Or temptation toward equality, forgetting the curse of Ham. Her voice softened, edged with steel. Remember, she's chattel, not kin. Attachment invites chaos, as Eve's bite birthed sin. The Baron turned to the window, brandy burning his throat like hellfire. Roses bloomed defiantly in the garden, thorns hidden. Eliza's eyes haunted him, familiar, accusatory. Was it mere fancy, or the stirrings of buried transgression? He locked himself in his study, bill of sale glaring like an indictment. $800 for a life echoing the 30 pieces that bought betrayal. His plantations had consumed thousands such, yet this transaction weighed like lead on his conscience, a personal covenant with darkness. Dusk descended, painting the sky in bruises of orange and violet, the harbor's waters rippling like unsettled spirits. Eliza arrived at 7, transformed, bathed, curls tamed into a modest bun, gray dress crisp with white accents, a vision of subdued grace. Thomas, the butler, 50-ish, graying with the dignity of enforced servitude, ushered her in. The parlor, child. The entrance hall overwhelmed, marble veined like frozen rivers, chandeliers dripping crystal tears, portraits of stern ancestors judging from gilded frames. This opulence contrasted the Brennan home's humble warmth, a far cry from her birth in shadowed quarters. The parlor enveloped her in luxury's embrace, blue silk walls whispering secrets, cream furniture inviting yet forbidding, a fire crackling in marble hearth despite the balmy eve, Margaret's edict for propriety. Constance, at the piano, coaxed Chopin's nocturne from the keys, notes melancholic as lost souls. Her fingers danced, mind adrift on anticipations. Thomas's throat-clearing halted the melody. Constance whirled, eyes alight. Papa. She's exquisite. Skirts swishing like whispers of silk, she approached, circling Eliza with predatory curiosity. Such delicacy, skin like cream stirred with honey. She could masquerade as kin, couldn't she? A distant cousin fallen on hard times. Constance. Margaret's rebuke sliced sharp. Restrain yourself, she's no plaything. But mine, mother, papa's gift. Pout forming like storm clouds. Servant, not equal. Mind the boundaries God etched in creation. Eliza stood statue still, eyes downcast, soul retreating to inner sanctums where chains couldn't reach. Yet inwardly, she prayed silent invocations to a just deity, beseeching deliverance from this gilded hell. Your name? Constance demanded. Eliza, Mississippi. Too plain. Eliza Grace, befitting your poise. Do you approve? As you wish, Mississippi. Humility veiled her spirit's fire. And literacy? Papa vouched. Yes, Mississippi Mrs. Brennan schooled me in letters, numbers, even verses from the good book. Constance clapped, delight bubbling like champagne. Read to me then. From Papa's Bible there, Genesis, the fall of man. Fitting, don't you think? Eliza approached the tome on its pedestal, fingers trembling slightly on leather worn by hypocritical hands. She opened to the page, voice steady as a river, and the serpent said unto the woman, You shall not surely die. The words hung, heavy with irony, temptation, sin, consequences echoing through the room like omens. The Baron watched from the doorway, unseen, a chill coiling in his gut. Her voice, her poise, it stirred deeper memories, fragments of a past liaison, a forbidden night in youth's folly. Could it be? No, coincidence. Yet divine threads wove patterns unseen, and guilt's whisper grew louder, foretelling a reckoning where blood would claim its due. As the evening deepened, shadows lengthened across the parlor like accusing fingers. Margaret's embroidery needle flashed in firelight, each stitch a ward against chaos. Constance chattered, assigning duties, hairdressing at dawn, wardrobe curation, evening readings of romantic tales. Eliza nodded, compliant, but her eyes, those mirroring pools, held reservoirs of unspoken stories. Upstairs, in the assigned attic chamber, sparse, with a narrow cot and a single candle, Eliza knelt in prayer. The gray dress folded neatly, she whispered psalms of deliverance. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." Yet want gnawed at her, for freedom, for the mother lost in infancy, for the father unknown. Little did she know, the threads of fate bound her to this house not as stranger, but as heir to its sins. Meanwhile, the Baron retired to his study, brandy forgotten. He unlocked a drawer, withdrawing yellowed letters, missives from a decade past, a liaison with a house servant on a distant plantation. A child born in secret, sold to obscure the stain. Names blurred in his vision, Eliza, the dates aligned like stars in malediction. Panic rose like bile, his granddaughter? The purchase, meant as whimsy, now a noose of divine justice. Sleep evaded the household that night. Constance dreamed of companionship laced with control, Margaret of hierarchies crumbling like Babel's tower, the Baron of judgment's gavel. Eliza, in her garret, gazed at stars through a cracked pane, wondering if heaven noted the ironies below. The next dawn broke with deceptive serenity, sunlight filtering through lace curtains like false grace. Breakfast in the dining room, silver gleaming, china delicate as eggshells. Constance summoned Eliza to serve, her movements graceful, eyes averted. But as she poured tea, the Baron's hand brushed hers, a spark, electric with recognition. He jerked back, spilling amber liquid across linen. "Father?" Constance queried, brow furrowed. "Nothing," he muttered, but his face paled like a ghost's. Margaret observed, suspicion dawning like the sun. Whispers among servants, Thomas noting the resemblance, those eyes, like the Baron's in his portrait as a boy. Murmurs spread like wildfire in dry grass, from kitchen to quarters. Days blurred into a tapestry of tension. Eliza proved adept, braiding Constance's hair with fingers light as feathers, reading aloud from Austen and Bronte, voices modulating to capture drama. Yet proximity bred familiarity, Constance confiding girlish secrets, Eliza listening with empathy born of shared youth, though worlds apart. One afternoon, in the garden amid blooming camellias, petals blood red as sin, Eliza ventured a question. "Miss, have you ever wondered about the souls in the fields? Their stories?" Constance laughed, brittle. "They're blessed by our care, Eliza. God placed them thus." But doubt seated in Constance's heart, a spiritual awakening stirring. The Baron, avoiding Eliza's gaze, buried himself in ledgers, names, dates, tracing back to that fateful indiscretion. Confirmation came in a faded entry, a child born to Amelia, his paramour, sold to George's hinterlands. Eliza's age, features undeniable. Guilt festered like a wound, biblical echoes resounding, the sins of the fathers upon the children. He envisioned retribution, plagues upon his house, like Pharaoh's defiance. Nightmares plagued him, chains binding his wrists, Eliza's face morphing into accusation. Margaret confronted him in the study's dim glow. "Who is she, Wilhelm?" "Truly?" "A servant," he lied, voice cracking. "Her eyes, yours. The mouth, the brow. Secrets have a way of rising, like Lazarus from the tomb." He confessed in whispers, the air thickening with betrayal's stench. Margaret recoiled, hand to throat. "Your bastard's child? In our home? Divine mockery." "What to do?" he pleaded. "Send her away, before Constance bonds, before society sensed the scandal." But fate intervened. Constance, overhearing fragments, sought Eliza in the attic. "Are we connected? Your face mirrors father's youth." Eliza, tears brimming, revealed fragments. "My mother spoke of a powerful man, a fleeting union. Sold me young, to hide the shame. Sisters in blood, divided by chains." Empathy bloomed in Constance, a crack in her porcelain facade. She advocated for Eliza's freedom, pleading with parents numb with horror. The Baron, tormented by visions of hellfire, consulted the family Bible, margins scribbled with ancestor sins, a legacy of exploitation. In a locked third-floor room, letters confirmed, Amelia's pleas, ignored, the child's sale, erasure of evidence. Redemption beckoned. In a storm-lashed night, thunder roaring like God's wrath, the Baron summoned Eliza. "Child, granddaughter. Forgive my blindness. Tears mingled with rain on windows. "Freedom," she whispered. Papers drawn, manumission inked, $800 reversed in spirit. Yet freedom's price, exile, to shield the family name. As Eliza departed, carriage wheels crunching gravel, the Baron watched, soul lighter yet scarred. Divine justice tempered with mercy? Or merely delayed? The Harrove legacy shifted. Constance, awakened, champion abolition whispers. Margaret, humbled, sought penance and charity. The Baron, aged overnight, pondered redemption's cost. In Charleston's fog, echoes lingered, a reminder that blood binds, sin surface, and heaven watches, unblinking. The parlor's fire crackled with false warmth, casting flickering tongues of orange light across the silk-draped walls, where shadows twisted like tormented spirits. The air hung heavy with the scent of beeswax candles and blooming night jasmine from the garden beyond the tall windows, their panes fogged by the evening's humid breath. March 14, 1857, had surrendered to twilight in Charleston, South Carolina, a city where fortunes rose on the backs of the enslaved and secrets festered in the humid underbelly of high society. In this room, the Harrove family gathered, unaware that the threads of fate woven by a vengeful providence were about to snag and tear. Constance, perched at the piano like a porcelain idol, let her fingers trail off the keys in a lingering chord that echoed with unspoken longing. Her honeyed curls caught the firelight, glowing like a halo undeserved, her blue eyes sparkling with the innocence of privilege. She turned, skirts whispering across the polished oak floor, her face alight with girlish glee as Eliza stood before her, transformed from auction house waif to a vision in gray muslin, collar starched white as untouched snow. "Papa, she's divine. Such grace, such refinement. And her complexion almost luminous, like moonlight on cream. One might mistake her for a ward of the house, not, well, you know." Margaret, ensconced in her armchair by the hearth, needle poised mid-stitch in her embroidery frame, a biblical scene of Eve's temptation, ironically half-formed, lifted her gaze sharply. Her pale hands, veined like marble, tightened on the hoop. The room's air seemed to thicken, charged with an electric premonition, as if the very walls held their breath. "Speak a line in French, Eliza. Prove your tutelage." Eliza hesitated, her dark curls pinned neatly, framing a face edged with quiet endurance. The lessons from Mrs. Brennan surface like fragments of a distant sermon, imperfect, but sacred in their rarity. "Je m'appelle Eliza," she murmured, voice soft as a confessional whisper, "et je suis enchantée de vous rencontrer." The words floated, accented but clear, a bridge between worlds. Constance clapped, delight bubbling like champagne in crystal. "Exquisite. We'll converse in French over tea, you'll pen my letters with flourish, recite poetry to chase away the doldrums. Oh, Eliza, you're a treasure unearthed." But then, her smile faltered, brows knitting as she leaned closer, firelight playing across Eliza's features, the wide-set eyes deep as shadowed wells, the resolute jaw, the subtle arch of cheekbones catching light like sculpted ivory. A chill rippled through the room, unspoken, as if a ghostly hand had brushed the nape of her neck. "Papa, doesn't she remind you of someone? Like gazing into an old mirror, perhaps?" The Baron's hand paused, brandy glass halfway to his lips, the amber liquid swirling like trap storms. He stood by the window, silhouette framed against the harbor's distant lights twinkling like judgmental stars. Wilhelm Harrove, self-made titan, felt a tremor in his core, a divine finger prodding at buried sins. "Nonsense, child. The light plays tricks." But Margaret's embroidery clattered to the floor, needle glinting like a fallen star. Her face drained of color, lips parting in a silent gasp. She rose unsteadily, hands trembling as if grasping at phantoms. "Wilhelm," she breathed, voice a razor wrapped in silk, "where precisely did you acquire her?" "The auction on Meeting Street, as I said." "Crane's establishment." "Why this interrogation?" His tone sharpened, but unease coiled in his gut, a serpent awakening. "Look at her, truly. Behold the face." Margaret's eyes, usually cold as winter seas, burned with a mix of horror and revelation. The parlor seemed to shrink, walls closing in like the confines of a confessional booth. The Baron complied, compelled by some inexorable force. His gaze locked on Eliza's, those sable eyes, mirrors to his youth, before time's chisel had hardened his features into a mask of authority. The nose, straight and proud, the mouth, full with a hint of stubborn grace, the overall cast of her countenance, softened by femininity and tinted by heritage, yet unmistakably echoing his own. It was as if Providence had sculpted a living indictment, pulling from his bloodline to craft this girl. A biblical echo resounded in his mind, the sins of the fathers visited upon the children, unto the third and fourth generation. The room spun, brandy forgotten, glass set down with a clink that echoed like a gavel's fall. "Your full name, girl?" Margaret demanded, voice quivering like a leaf in divine wind. "Eliza, ma'am. Simply Eliza." "And your mother's?" A pause, heavy as judgment. Eliza's training, to remain invisible, to speak only when prodded, warred with the urgency in Margaret's tone. "Sarah, ma'am. Sarah, once of the Brennan estate." Margaret staggered, a strangled cry escaping, half lament, half accusation. Thomas, the butler, materialized from the shadows, his graying presence a pillar of enforced calm, steadying her with a deferential arm. "I must retire," she gasped. "Wilhelm, privately. Now." Constance, confusion etching her delicate features like cracks in fine china, stepped forward. "Mama? What's amiss? You look as if you've seen a specter." "A mere headache, darling." "Thomas, escort the girl to the adjacent chamber upstairs. We'll address this anon." As Thomas led Eliza away, her bare feet silent on the Persian rug, she cast a fleeting glance back. Her eyes met the Baron's, and in that instant, a silent thunderclap passed between them. Recognition. Knowledge. Judgment. It was the gaze of a soul who had pieced together fragments of whispered tales, her mother's bedtime confessions of a charming visitor, a night of false promises, abandonment in dawn's cruel light. Eliza knew, this man, this Baron, was the architect of her existence, the sower of seeds in forbidden soil. And now, he beheld his harvest, chained and commodified. Divine irony chilled the air. Lot's daughters, David's Bathsheba, the hidden fruits of transgression rising to confront the sinner. In the master bedroom upstairs, drapes drawn against the night's prying eyes, Margaret collapsed into a velvet chaise, sobs racking her frame like seismic tremors. The Baron had witnessed her composure shatter only in the stillbirths of their early marriage, but never this raw unraveling. The room smelled of lavender sachets and aged wood, a sanctuary now profaned. "Margaret, compose yourself. Who is this Sarah Brennan?" Her laughter emerged bitter, laced with venom. "You feign ignorance? Of course, why recall the wreckage left in your wake? She was merely another conquest, another soul crushed under your ambition." I don't." "Liar." Margaret's eyes flashed, tears drying into crystalline fury. "Cast your mind back, Wilhelm. 28 years past. You, a brash 25, fresh in Charleston, clawing for footing among the elite. An invitation to the Brennan estate in Georgia, a weekend of revelry, alliances forged in wine and wagers." Fragments surfaced in his memory, hazy as fog over the Ashley River, laughter echoing in grand halls, cigar smoke curling like incense to false gods, the thrill of youth's impunity. And yes, a girl. Sarah. Light-skinned, eyes like shadowed forests, serving in the shadows of opulence. Rumors whispered of her lineage, perhaps old Brennan's own indiscretion. A garden tryst under moonlit magnolias, or was it a stable's hay-scented seclusion? Details blurred by brandy and time, but the act, careless, entitled, lingered like a stain on his soul. "You remember now," Margaret accused, voice steadying into prosecutorial calm. "Sarah, house servant, pretty and vulnerable. You took her, Wilhelm, in your drunken haze, then vanished like misted dawn. She bore the consequences alone. The girl? Eliza, you claim she's your daughter. Flesh of your flesh, bone of your bone. Constance's half-sibling, presented as a bauble for her birthday. Oh, the divine mockery, buying your own blood at auction, parading her as property in your parlor." The Baron sank onto the bed's edge, linens crumpling under his weight. Nausea roiled, a tempest in his core. "Impossible. Mere resemblance. Deny it? Gaze upon her anew. The portraits in your study, your boyhood self stares back, transposed in feminine key. The timeline aligns like stars in malediction, conception that summer, birth 9 months hence, now 14 years etched in her frame. But how did you know of Sarah? Margaret's smile twisted, cold as a winter grave. My father, ever vigilant, commissioned inquiries before our union. Your indiscretions surfaced, Sarah among them. But she vanished, sold off to obscure the scandal. No child evident, so he deemed you redeemable. Never foresaw this reckoning, this prodigal seed returned to haunt us. Guilt crashed over him like waves on Charleston's shores, biblical floods cleansing, or drowning? He envisioned Jacob's deception, Esau's birthright stolen, or Reuben's hidden sins exposed. I swear, Margaret, oblivion cloaked it. No intent to unearth this. Intent matters not. Actions beget echoes. You sowed in secret, now reap in shame. Silence descended, thick as plantation fog. From below, Constance's laughter tinkled, oblivious, mingling with Eliza's muted responses, a symphony of innocence and irony. What course now? He whispered, voice hollow. Margaret straightened, armor reforming. Silence. Burial deeper than before. Constance remains ignorant, society unsullied. Eliza? A mere acquisition, nothing more. But she's our blood. Legally? Chattel. The mother's chains bind the child, South Carolina's edict, shielding men like you from paternity's yoke. Acknowledge her? Scandal erupts like brimstone, Constance's prospects ash, our empire crumbled. For what? A bastard with no claim? He knew the law's cruel calculus, enslavement maternal, paternity irrelevant. Its sanctified violation, turning offspring into assets, sins into silence. Sell her, then? Banish the specter? And consign her to worse hells? Fields of endless toil, brothels, degradation? Known here, we safeguard, veil in mercy's guise. Rationalization's bomb, yet it's soothed. Your vow, kindness prevails. No lash, no privation. And upon Constance's nuptials, freedom papers forged, a northern exodus. Margaret nodded, pact sealed in shadowed chamber. Agreed. Until then, vigilance. Descending to dinner, the dining room gleamed with silver and crystal, candle flames dancing like souls in purgatory. Constance presided, effervescent, Eliza stationed behind, statue still. The Baron's entrance drew her glance, eyes locking in mutual accusation. She knew, as surely as Eve knew the fruit's bitterness. Maternal tales had armed her, Wilhelm Harrove, charmer turned abandoner. The meal unfolded in stilted ritual, china clinking, wine poured like blood libations. Constance prattled of fates and finery, Margaret nibbled, pallor ghostly, the Baron drowned words in claret. Eliza observed, a silent seraph of judgment, her presence a thorn in their Eden. Post-repast, Constance led Eliza aloft, to the modest chamber, cot narrow as a coffin, washstand Spartan, window-framing gardens moonlit ghosts. Awaken me at 7, attire me, tend my tresses. Day-long companionship, letters, strolls, readings. Evenings, undress rituals. Comprehend? Yes, Miss Constance. Address me thus, reminder of ownership. Constance beamed. We'll bond like kin, Eliza. You're superior to the rest, almost sisterly. Eliza's mask held, but inwardly, irony scorched, indeed, Mississippi. Almost. That night, in solitude's grip, Eliza knelt by her cot, moonlight silvering the floor like manna. Prayers ascended, psalms of deliverance, pleas for justice. Her mother's final embrace replayed, know your worth, child. Your sire? Wilhelm Harrove, visitor to Brennan's, my fleeting folly. He departed, I endured sale, birth and squalor. Yet young Mrs. Brennan redeemed us, kindness, education. Now, scattered, but I'll liberate you. Had Sarah orchestrated this? Whispered Eliza's details to Crane, luring the Baron? Providence's hand, perhaps God's intricate web, ensnaring the mighty in their webs. Weeks blurred into monotonous tapestry, dawn ablutions in chill water, intricate coiffures, silver tray breakfasts. Readings from Bronte and Hawthorne, voices modulating despair and redemption. Garden ambles under parasols, petals falling like shed illusions. Constance's whims veered, confessional intimacy one breath, petty tyrannies the next, pinches, threats, caprices lash. Eliza endured, chameleon in chains, indispensable shadow. Survival's art, honed in adversity. Yet spiritually, she wrestled, Job's patience, or Samson's vengeance. Dreams invaded, acknowledgement, embrace, freedom's dawn. Dangerous visions, tempting as the serpent's whisper. The Baron evaded, haunts of study or streets his refuge. Ledgers blurred under his gaze, conscience pricked by phantom eyes, his eyes, accusing from the past. Nightmares plagued, chains binding him, Eliza's face morphing into avenging angel, divine scales tipping against him. Margaret patrolled, eagle-eyed, enforcing silence. Yet cracks formed, servants' whispers in kitchens, the likeness. Master's youth reborn. Thomas's knowing nods. Society's gaze loomed, a guillotine suspended. One evening, storm clouds massing like heavenly hosts, Constance confided in Eliza amid candlelit boudoir, I envy your poise, Eliza. No cares but service. Eliza, brushing tresses, murmured, cares chain all, miss, some visible, some soul deep. Constance paused, mirror reflecting dual faces, sisters unwitting. What burdens you? Memories, Mississippi. A mother's love, lost to auction's gavel. Empathy flickered in Constance, seed of awakening. Tell me of her. Sarah, gentle, learned. Taught me letters, faith. Spoke of justice divine, retribution for the proud. Constance shivered, unwitting chill of prophecy. Downstairs, the Baron pored over family Bible, margins scarred with ancestral sins, exploits, erasures. A locked drawer yielded letters, Sarah's pleas, ignored, sale receipts, damning. Guilt's vice tightened, redemption's call, or damnation's door. He prayed, fitful, Lord, if this be thy judgment, grant mercy's path. Eliza, in her garret, echoed, vengeance is thine, I await thy hand. The household teetered, fragile as spun glass, divine storm brewing. Blood's call grew louder, sins surfacing like drowned truths from the deep. In Charleston's veiled nights, legacy hung in balance, salvation or fall? The Harrove mansion, once a bastion of calculated opulence, now pulsed with unspoken dread beneath its Georgian facade. Hallways that had echoed with Constance's laughter now carried the soft tread of avoidance, the Baron skirting Eliza's path like a man fleeing his own shadow, Margaret's gaze sharpening into vigilance whenever the girl appeared. 3 months had passed since that fateful parlor revelation, yet the air remained thick, humid with June's oppressive heat, jasmine from the garden infiltrating open windows like accusatory perfume. The scent clung to everything, curtains, linens, the Baron's coat, as if nature itself conspired to remind him of buried nights in Georgia gardens. Eliza moved through the house with practiced invisibility, lowering her eyes in corridors, stepping aside on staircases, folding into corners of the garden where camellias drooped heavy with dew. Yet the Baron felt her presence always, a quiet scrutiny, not defiant, but unyielding. Those dark eyes, mirrors of his youthful portraits, followed him without accusation, only quiet knowing. It was the gaze of one who had learned early that power lay not in rebellion, but in endurance, not in words, but in witness. Each encounter left him hollowed, as if her silence extracted penance he refused to voice. Margaret managed the intrusion with icy precision. Eliza was no longer a mere servant but a contained threat, a ledger entry to monitor, a risk to mitigate. As long as the girl performed flawlessly, braiding Constance's hair with deft fingers, reciting French verses without stumble, attending every whim, Margaret tolerated her. But the unspoken ultimatum hung like a noose, one misstep, one whisper of truth, and Eliza would vanish into the auction block small, sold southward where questions died in cotton fields. Among the household staff, curiosity simmered like a slow boil. Thomas, the butler, maintained dignified distance. Decades of service had taught him discretion, but his nods carried weight. Betsy, the cook, stout and forthright after 20 years in the Harrove kitchens, muttered over steaming pots, the child's skin too fair, eyes too sharp. Mistress stared like she'd seen the devil's own kin that first night. Thomas hushed her, not our place, yet whispers spread, from scullery to quarters, where enslaved voices compared features in low tones, tracing the Baron's boyhood portrait to Eliza's face. The resemblance was no secret, tension radiated like heat from the hearth. Servants wondered, what sin festered behind those locked doors? What divine justice brewed in the silence? Then came the letter. Delivered by private courier under cover of dusk, June 14, 1857, 3 months to the day of Eliza's arrival. Cheap paper, smudged ink, handwriting schooled yet strained. No seal, no signature. The words struck like a lash. I know who she is. I know what you did. If you want your secret kept, we must speak. Alone. Warehouse on Gadsden Street, midnight tomorrow. Tell no one. The Baron read it by lamplight in his study, brandy decanter open, heart thudding against ribs. Extortion? Rumor-fueled bluff? Yet the precision chilled him, the timing, the knowledge. Someone had watched, waited, gauged his cowardice. He considered Margaret, her counsel would summon constables, publicity, ruin. Better solitude, resolution in shadows. The next day dragged in fevered haze, ledgers blurred, servants snapped it, wine flowed freely. Margaret observed his agitation but asked nothing. Years had taught her the peril of probing his secrets. At 11:30, claiming a late meeting, he departed. Pistol concealed in coat pocket, $500 in notes folded against his chest, dread a stone in his gut. Gadsden Street warehouse loomed near the docks, once cotton repository, now decayed sentinel of forgotten trade. Broken windows gaped like empty eyes, doors sagged on rusted hinges, the air reeked of mildew, salt, and something primal, decay, perhaps, or fear. He pushed inside. Darkness swallowed him, vast and echoing. Moonlight pierced shattered panes and silver shafts, illuminating dust motes like suspended sins. Hello? His voice bounced off high beams, mocking. Footsteps answered, slow, deliberate, from shadowed recesses. A figure emerged into moonlight, cloaked, hooded, moving with incongruous grace, as if entering a ballroom rather than ruin. Baron Harrove. The voice, educated, laced with George's soft drawl. Thank you for coming. He gripped the pistol's handle. Who are you? What do you want? The hood fell back. Time fractured. A woman, perhaps 40, light brown skin etched with hardship's lines, gray threading severe bun. Dignity in her posture defied the rags beneath the cloak. And her eyes, dark, intelligent, haunted, identical to Eliza's. To his own. Sarah Brennan, she said. Eliza's mother. And we must speak of your crimes. The floor seemed to vanish. Impossible. You're dead. The auction. Lies I paid for. I've lived in Savannah 14 years, seamstress scraping pennies for her freedom. Never enough. Then word came, sold to Wilhelm Harrove. I knew. His mind reeled. You orchestrated. No. Fate or God placed her before you. But when I learned, I saw chance. You're her father, Baron. Whether you claim it or not. Father? The word tasted like ash. What would you have me do? Free her. Acknowledge her. Grant the life she deserves. He laughed, harsh, hollow, echoing in emptiness. You grasp nothing. Freedom invites peril, runaway status, hunters, chains anew. Only my ownership shields her. Then manumit her legally. Papers. Protection. And explain? I bought her months ago. Questions would unearth everything: wife, daughter, society. Ruin. Sarah advanced, eyes blazing like coals. The truth should burn. You raped me, Baron. 15 years old, in Brennan's garden while laughter rang inside. You left me with child, alone. Mrs. Brennan sold me upon discovery. I birthed Eliza in a slave pen, filth, fear, no aid. 14 years protecting her, saving for freedom. Now you parade her as servant to your legitimate child, denying blood because scandal threatens. Shame flooded him, physical, searing. Memories he'd entombed resurfaced, drunken haze, entitlement, violation dismissed as youthful folly. I'm sorry. Inadequate, but true. Young, drunk, thoughtless. I'd undo it if possible. Undoings are denied. Make right. Free her now. I cannot. My family, Constance's marriage, Margaret's standing, destroyed. Everything collapses. And Eliza? Does she not matter? Black? Slave? Fruit of your sin? They stood in Moonlight's judgment, gulf unbridgeable, race, law, power. He knew she spoke truth. Eliza deserved acknowledgement, liberty, family. Yet freedom's price, his empire's fall. I cannot free her openly, he said, defeated. But I vow, no harm, no sale. Education, care. When Constance weds, quiet manumission, new identity, northbound. Best I offer. Sarah's face crumpled, tears carving paths. Not enough. My daughter, now. Take her? Hunted as runaway. Worse fate. I want her free. Now. Let me plan. Time. Safety. My word. Your word? She laughed bitterly. Given 28 years ago, then abandonment. Why trust now? Because I'm her father. Flawed, cowardly, but I wish her no suffering. Let me protect her this much. Sarah hooded herself again. No choice. I cannot by fight force. But here, if you fail, if harm comes, if freedom denied, I will speak. Wife, daughter, streets, papers. I will ruin you as you ruined me. She paused at the threshold. She knows. I told her everything before the sale. When she serves your daughter, remember, she knows you're her father. Knows you choose reputation over blood. Live with that, coward. Then gone, swallowed by night. He stood frozen, guilt of ice. Eliza, his daughter, enslaved in his halls, serving Constance, eyes bearing witness to his betrayal. Promise made, yet how? South Carolina's laws strangled manumission, legislative petition, public notice, white vouching, proof of self-support. Post-1820 bans on private emancipation made it near impossible without scrutiny. Forged papers risked felony, northern sale invited betrayal, feigned death demanded conspiracy. Every path perilous. He chose inaction, waiting for perfect moment, knowing it cowardice. Homeward, study bound, brandy drowned remorse. House silent, yet Eliza's presence haunted, awake upstairs, perhaps sensing the night's drama. He imagined her prayers, freedom's dream, fragile as candle flame. Months blurred, summer's swelter to autumn's crisp, winter's mild chill. Constance grew imperious, demanding readings, fanning, constant adoration. Eliza served unflinching, patient amid caprice, efficient in devotion. The Baron watched from afar, guilt-gnawing promise to Sarah unfulfilled, lawyers consulted hypothetically, answers grim. September 1858, 18 months since Eliza's arrival. Constance announced engagement to Harrison Caldwell, 23, heir to shipping wealth, blonde confidence untouched by hardship. Grand party at the mansion, pink silk gown, pearl throat, rose-crowned hair. Radiant, champagne-flushed. Harrison beside her, visions of expanded empire dancing in his eyes. The Baron toasted, smile fixed, while inwardly reckoning loomed. Constance's marriage neared, the promised trigger for freedom. Yet scandal's specter loomed larger. How to release Eliza without unraveling all? Upstairs, Eliza prepared Constance's trousseau, fingers steady, heart heavy. She knew the vow, Sarah's midnight plea, Baron's evasion. Freedom dangled, tantalizing, yet chained by fear. In the garden, jasmine bloomed defiant. Divine justice waited, patient, inexorable. Blood called to blood, sins demanded reckoning. The Harrove legacy teetered, would redemption dawn, or would cowardice claim another victim? Spring 1859 approached Charleston like a bride veiled in anticipation, yet the Harrove household simmered beneath the surface calm. Preparations for Constance's wedding unfolded with frantic elegance, bolts of Parisian silk unfurled across drawing-room tables, crates of New York hothouse roses arriving by steamer, cases of French champagne stacked in the cellar like offerings to appease envious gods. The event promised to eclipse the season's other unions, sealing alliances, fortunes, and reputations in one glittering ceremony. Margaret orchestrated it all with feverish precision, her hands steady despite the tremor that never quite left them since Eliza's arrival. Each detail, invitations engraved on heavy vellum, menus scripted in French, was a bulwark against the chaos that had threatened to engulf them. Over breakfast one crystalline morning, silver gleaming under chandelier light, Constance announced her decree with casual finality. Eliza will accompany me as part of my dowry. She spread jam across toast with delicate strokes. Harrison has consented. I cannot imagine managing without her. She anticipates every need, every mood. Training another would be intolerable. The Baron, newspaper half raised like a shield, felt the words strike like a physical blow. His coffee cup paused midway to his lips. Constance, that may not be wise. Why ever not, Papa? She was my birthday gift. Mine to keep. He lowered the paper slowly, searching for words that would not betray the storm within. Perhaps an older, more seasoned attendant, someone versed in larger households, would serve you better in marriage. Constance's blue eyes flashed. I don't want seasoned. I want Eliza. She's become essential. Almost like family. The word hung, innocent yet cruel, slicing deeper than any blade. He tried reason, then bribery, a new girl, 2, 3, an entire retinue tailored to perfection. Constance remained immovable, attachment rooted in possession rather than affection, the way one clings to a favored doll long outgrown yet irreplaceable. Margaret observed from her end of the table, lips curved in faint, cold amusement. She understood her husband's desperation perfectly. Eliza in Constance's household would slip beyond his reach, freedom impossible without his daughter's consent. And consent would never come, not from a girl raised to view servants as extensions of her will. Margaret harbored no pity. Eliza embodied Wilhelm's betrayal, a living wound reopened daily. Let her depart with Constance, let the reminder vanish into another grand home. If lifelong bondage followed, so be it. Bastard seed reaped what sin sowed. The Baron felt the noose tighten. His midnight vow to Sarah, freedom upon Constance's marriage, now dangled uselessly. Eliza as dowry meant perpetual servitude under Constance's caprice. Revelation? Telling Constance the truth would shatter her world, ignite fury at her father, and likely redound upon Eliza in cruelty masked as righteous anger. No path offered mercy, every road forked toward ruin. November brought another letter from Sarah, ink trembling with urgency. You swore freedom when she wed. Word reaches me, Eliza joins the dowry, bound to your daughter forever. Your promise breaks. Act, or I will, consequences be damned. The threat landed like thunder. Sarah's patience had frayed to breaking. Desperation bred recklessness, exposure loomed, then providence, or judgment, intervened. December 1858, yellow fever crept through Charleston like a thief in humid night. Milder than 54's slaughter, 30 souls claimed rather than hundreds, yet terror emptied streets. Tar barrels burned in gutters, sulfur smoke curling like incense against plague. Wealthy families fled to plantations, shutters closed, silence descended. The Harovs prepared retreat to the Ashley River estate, servants packed, wagons loaded. 2 days before departure, Eliza collapsed. It began subtly, headache splitting her skull, vision blurring. Then fever raged, skin scorching, eyes glazing like fevered glass. Chills followed, violent tremors despite piled quilts. By dusk, delirium claimed her, whispers of mama, fragmented pleas in a voice thin as thread. The doctor arrived, coat damp from evening mist. Pulse taken, tongue viewed, face grim. Yellow fever. Undeniable. Quarantine at once away from the household. Constance wailed. But I need her. We leave tomorrow. You leave without her, Mississippi contagion risks all. Mortality near 50% in her condition. Constance's tears flowed freely. She might die? Quite possible. Margaret's voice cut clean. We depart as planned. Eliza remains here, attended. Recovery brings her to the plantation. Otherwise. The sentence trailed into silence heavier than words. The Baron seized the fracture. I'll move her to my outlying property, Lynch Street, number 47. Isolated, safe from spread. A nurse, discreet, will tend her. Margaret nodded, already turning to trunks. Constance sobbed theatrically but yielded. The doctor departed, instructions lingered like ash. That night, under cover of darkness, Eliza, wrapped in blankets, barely conscious, was conveyed to the small, seldom used house on the city's fringe. Ruth, a free woman of color known for silence and skill, accepted the charge without question. The Baron dispatched a message to Sarah, Lynch Street, 47. Nurse will admit you. If you mean to act, the hour is now, while all believe her dying. 3 nights later, Sarah arrived, cloaked, servant-clad, shadow among shadows. Ruth admitted her, then withdrew to the porch, vigilant sentinel. Eliza lay in dim lamplight, fever waning yet body frail. Her eyes fluttered open at her mother's touch. Mama! A trembling hand reached. Sarah knelt, clasping it, tears falling like rain on parched earth. I'm here, baby. Always. Am I dying? The fever breaks. You're mending. We're leaving tonight. Philadelphia. New names. Freedom. Eliza's gaze searched her mother's face. If caught. Then caught. But we try. The Baron, he opened this door. Guilt, perhaps. Fear. A shred of conscience. Ruth looks away. This is our moment. They departed under moonless sky. Sarah had brought plain dark garments, forged papers naming Eliza Elizabeth Freeman, free mulatto, Savannah-born 1843. Flimsy shield, forged documents fooled few against determined catchers, but better than chains. They threaded silent streets, shadows clinging to the docks. A Baltimore-bound ship waited, passage secured below decks, hidden. Dawn tide carried them away. Eliza stood at the rail as Charleston faded to spires, mansions, the life that had owned her, dissolving into mist. Freedom approached, fragile as dawn light, yet real. The Baron learned 2 days later, Ruth's discreet note, recovered sufficiently to travel, departed with woman claiming kinship. He knew instantly. Sarah had seized the gift. Instinct screamed, alert authorities, dispatch catchers, reclaim property. Law favored him utterly. Yet he halted. Return meant punishment for Eliza, exposure from Sarah's threatened revelations, family shattered, name blackened. Or, let them vanish. Announce death by fever, plausible, unquestioned. Mourn publicly, exhale privately. Problem dissolved. Cowardice prevailed, as ever. He instructed Ruth, she succumbed. Pauper's grave. $100 sealed her lips, more than a year's wages. To his family, he bore the news gravely. Constance collapsed in grief, weeks of refusal, food untouched, room darkened, solace spurned. Margaret offered perfunctory sorrow, relief veiled thinly. The thorn removed, household breathed easier. The Baron retreated to brandy and solitude. He never learned their fate, safe in Philadelphia? Recaptured? Lost on the road? He told himself he'd granted mercy, bent law for conscience's sake. Yet sleepless nights summoned her face, his eyes, his blood serving, suffering, now fled. Had she hated him? Forgiven? Forgotten? The wedding proceeded April 1859, Constance radiant in white silk, sadness lingering in her gaze like a half-healed wound. She missed Eliza, the companion taken for granted, the confidant now dust, so she believed. Harrison stood proud, vows exchanged, new life on Meeting Street begun. Margaret succumbed to pneumonia 3 years later, 43, beauty undimmed, secrets intact. The Baron remarried swiftly, a Savannah widow, Catherine Thornton, no further children. War came, Confederacy crumbled, fortune evaporated. He withered into 1869, broken amid broken South. On his deathbed, priest attending, he whispered, "Tell her I'm sorry. Tell Eliza I'm sorry." The priest, ignorant, murmured prayers. The Baron slipped away, secrets sealed in silence. Constance and Harrison bore 4 children, lost all in war, rebuilt in Atlanta. She never spoke of Eliza, the servant lost to fever. If suspicion ever stirred, she buried it deep. Some truths endangered even memory. History shrouds Eliza and Sarah. No Philadelphia records of Brennan arrivals in 1858, no census, directories, mentions. Intentional erasure, runaways survived by vanishing. Yet one thread tantalizes, 1870 census, Chestnut Street dressmaker Elizabeth Freeman, mulatto, arrived pre-war, shop thriving, fair prices, fine work. Resided with mother Sarah Freeman. Profession matched Sarah's Savannah trade, name echoed Eliza's own, Freeman a defiant claim. Timing aligns, origins unspoken. If this was she, Eliza lived to witness emancipation, chains broken nationwide. Late 20s at war's end, young enough for renewal, seasoned enough to savor liberty. Unmarried, with Sarah until 1875, alone thereafter, self-sustaining. Death 1891, tuberculosis, 48. Buried Eden Cemetery, Stone Simple. Elizabeth Freeman 1843 to 1891 free at last. Did she ponder the barren buyer, jailer, reluctant liberator? Hate? Pity? Oblivion? Lost to time. What endures? Survival. Escape. A life forged beyond bondage, beyond the mansion's gilded prison. The Harrove House on Trad Street endures, a museum now. Tourists drift through polished rooms, admiring period finery, portraits stern on walls. In the study, Baron Wilhelm gazes from canvas, dark eyes, straight nose, confident curve of mouth. Study closely, imagination may conjure resemblance to a barefoot girl once trembling there, his mirror in feminine form, bloodbound yet law-denied. Guides omit her. No plaque, no whisper. Official chronicle erases Eliza, brief servant, fever claimed 1858. Yet linger in that study, feel history's weight. Sense her ghost in the corner, watching, waiting. Hear the eternal question of the enslaved, the betrayed, how could you? Wonder, as he did in dying years, can amends suffice? Does a late mercy erase early crime? Is sorry ever enough? No. Some sins scar beyond healing. The Baron purchased his daughter, held her in bondage 18 months, let her serve his legitimate child, then, cornered by plague and conscience, cracked the door to flight. Not redemption. Merely a less monstrous, close to monstrous tale. History offers no justice, no absolution, only bare facts, and the mirror. What would you have done? What do you think? Did the Baron atone enough? Did Eliza and Sarah reach true freedom, or did chains reclaim them? Share below if these shadowed histories move you. Subscribe, ring the bell, share with those who seek truth in darkness. Until the next tale.